Thank you for listening to Persian Women in Tech's podcast, P with Shiros, created to introduce and elevate the profile of successful Iranian women in tech.
Thank you for listening to Persian Women in Tech's podcast, P with Shiro, created to introduce and elevate the profile of successful Iranian women in tech. Hi, everyone. My name is Sepida Nasiri, founder and CEO of Persian Women in Tech and also Women of MENA in Technology. We are a community where supporting women in tech, and particularly our community, the Middle Eastern and North African region community, and of course, the Persian community is super important to us to close the diversity and gender gap in STEM. Today, and what the podcast is about is highlight and spotlight incredible women who are contributing to career growth and development for the next generation and the current generation, and their career path of how they got to where they are today. I'm really excited about our conversation today. Our guest is Dr. Noel Bakhtian, Executive Director, Berkeley Lab Engineer Storage Center. She's also a professor of the practice at Boise State University, a board member at the Institute for Quantitative Study of Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity. Her list of achievement goes on. And instead of just reading off, I would like to introduce and welcome Dr. Noel Bakhtian to this conversation. How are you today, Dr. Bakhtian?
Hi, Sepida. I'm wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. I'm a huge fan of Persian Women in Tech, so it's just a thrill to be here today.
Thank you so much. Dr. Bakhtian, as many always, and I think our generation and the next generation is discussing a lot around what it takes to get where to become the most successful individual in our career path, what opportunities exist, and how we can thrive even with challenges. If you can give our listeners today a glimpse in your career path, a little bit about yourself so they get to know you better, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So like you mentioned, right now, I am the executive director for the Energy Storage Center at Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, which is one of the Department of Energy's national labs. I get the fun job of actually standing up this center, thinking about science, technology, policy, and working with brilliant people across the entire national lab. I actually came to this job from another position at a different national lab. There's 17 national labs across the Department of Energy system in the United States. So I came from the Idaho National Laboratory, where I was director for a center called the Center for Advanced Energy Studies, which is actually a consortium that brings together 4 universities in the region with the national lab. So that center was all about collaboration and how do we be bigger than the sum of the parts with academia and the public sector to do incredible science, engineering, workforce development, education, and innovation. And before that, what you'll hear probably later in this talk as well is I came to INL from Washington, D.C., where I got to have some really incredible experiences across Congress and Department of Energy headquarters, so the executive branch, and then also the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy, working with really brilliant people. So it's been a really fun decade, I have to say.
And you have had so many opportunities and achievements. It's just commendable to see women at your statue representing our community. And I think many of us, we always are so hungry to see someone looking like us representing the growth within this region as well. And that anything is possible, any opportunity is possible if you just drive towards that goal. Dr. Bakhtian, one of the questions that many ask when they look at successful individuals and their career is, what was the most challenging moment in your life and how did you overcome the situation? Many of us have challenges, I think, that come our way throughout our career, and sometimes we question, how can we overcome these situations?
Wow, that's a good one. Well, here's one. Growing up, I really wanted to be an astronaut. And I don't mean just a pastime thought. I actually, went to summer science camp where we tracked asteroids and learned spherical trigonometry as juniors in high school. I was doing informational interviews with astronauts in college. I got a Churchill scholarship to go learn aerodynamics at the University of Cambridge. And then I went on to do a PhD in aerospace engineering. And I did my PhD research at NASA Ames on how to land human missions on Mars. And then here's the challenge. During my PhD, I actually got diagnosed with a chronic disease that meant I wasn't actually eligible to be an astronaut anymore. And that was very crushing, as you can imagine. Of course, I always knew that actually becoming an astronaut had always been a really long shot, but my whole life had had that direction until then. So it was very easy. I had one direction, I had one vision, and I was going for it. So at that point, I was kind of forced to take stock of my life and my direction again, which is hard for anyone at any point. So I had to decide, did I want to continue in that same type of research? Did I want to continue at NASA, et cetera? And what I decided was that I did really love the subject matter that I was working on. And I really believed in that area of research. Aerospace engineering is just an incredibly rich area of research, very exciting. The difference then was that I actually had more options. I wasn't tied to any one thing, which in a way was very freeing. So actually, I ended up at some point doing a deep dive on energy and environment during a fellowship in Washington, D.C. And that, I had opened up my horizons enough because of that experience that I had had to feel comfortable pivoting my career at that point to really focus on climate change. So that was definitely a challenging moment for me, but the way I overcame it was I thought about the silver linings and what this could mean for my career if I was then able to open up my horizons a little bit more and think about other options if they came my way.
That is incredible. And I think what you just mentioned can happen to anyone. We dream maybe sometimes at an earlier age, or we put our heart and soul into a career path or a career goal, whether it comes from us or from our parents or cultural and whatnot. And we hit a point where that might not be a possibility. Some, for like your case, it could be a health challenge, but in other times, maybe we decide that it's really not the right fit for us once we become that person or we take that route and have some of the experiences. And it's beautiful how you just mentioned, pivoting out of it and not getting married to that one idea or that one opportunity. But I do think, Dr. Bakhtian, with what I've seen today with opportunities going to space that could become reality, looking at Jeff Bezos and Richard Branson at this point trying to open up just commercial flights to go out there. So
exactly. I was about to say, never assume that the doors are completely closed, because maybe one day I'd be able to pay for a ticket to space.
Exactly. And I think that's also something, right? We should never close the door. These opportunities may not come right now, or it's not the right time. Sometimes it comes later. I'm crossing fingers for you to get that information or an invitation from them once it's ready to go. Looking at challenges is one thing, but what would you tell yourself at a younger age? And I don't want to say an age or as a number, it could be at any age, where you would tell your younger self something. What would that look like? Is that it could be advice? I personally look at myself and I would have said, it's never too early to start anything. That would be my thing, because I feel that we always put age to everything. And I think ageism and age has nothing to do with what we can do. So what is your advice, or looking at your younger self, what would you tell your younger self?
Yeah, actually, I love yours. Yours is great. I think maybe mine might be, now that I've seen, now that I've been in the room with some of these really brilliant people, I would say to my younger self, don't assume that people have everything figured out. Don't assume that the experts know everything. There's always room for someone with passion and interest to actually make a difference at any level. So my suggestion would be, ask the hard questions, because that helps the geniuses in the room as well with what they're trying to figure out. Suggest the crazy ideas. Never think that there's an idea too crazy. In fact, just in my last meeting, I literally started a comment by saying, this is a crazy idea, but what if we did this? And it was very crazy. And they actually liked it. right? So it's even at my level, I'm still suggesting the crazy ideas because I'm not sure. And some of them pan out, not all of them. And then I'd say also don't take no for an answer. And I don't mean be pushy or rude, but I mean, if someone says no to something, I often ask why. I ask the why. And sometimes if you keep double clicking on that, what you figure out is that the no came from, oh, this is how we've always done it, or this was my understanding of the rules or whatever. But half of the time, honestly, you can turn that around. Or once you understand that basis, you can come up with a more creative answer. So I would just say, don't take no for an answer, and don't assume everyone's got the solutions figured out, because everyone can really make a big difference.
I love it. The no part, especially, I truly agree with a no is not a no. It can definitely turn into a yes. Be persistent, resilient, and figure out a way to get around that no. I think that's the second option. If you cannot turn that person into a yes, just figure out a way to get around it. Absolutely, that's the way to go. And I also like what you mentioned, about specialists or management level and whatnot, not knowing always everything. You're all discovering sometimes things together, especially in innovation and technology, right? And crazy ideas that we might think crazy today might be the future of innovation tomorrow, like going to space. So absolutely, these are amazing. I think everyone could be inspired by this suggestion and looking at themselves, especially those who are younger or going through early of their career, or anywhere in their career.
That was point. Oh, sorry to interrupt. To your point about, it's nice to see people who look like you. I totally agree. And, there's science showing that people are more likely to speak up if they know that there's people that have blazed the path for them. But I would also say that also thinking about the fact that diversity of thought matters, and that better solutions come out of more diverse teams. Even if you don't see someone who looks like you or who has your background, you might have even more interesting thoughts to share than everyone else who's been in the same room together for the last 20 years, right? They all think alike. So maybe speak out even more in that situation.
Agreed. And that's really important, to have a diverse team and being, I think, embracing more the differences, because together we can even dream bigger and have ideas that we didn't think about. Agreed on that. Talking about people surrounding us and having different ideas, or inclusivity and sense of belonging. Was there anyone or anything that had a great impact in your life? Someone maybe who did something or taught you something, or just maybe an event that has happened throughout your career path?
Yeah. When I have been thinking recently about who I am today and some of the characteristics I have and where I got those, a lot of it really goes back to my mom. She's just the sort of person that never takes no for an answer, like I was saying, not in a rude way, but just like, let's find a way to make this work. She was so creative. And I find a lot of myself stems from me watching her example and how she lives her life. Always finding a way to make it work even better when she got a no, even better than we had first imagined. So sometimes that first no was a blessing, and just making it happen. So a lot of my current success and behavior, I think, stems from that. So I'm really grateful to my mom.
Yes, but I agree with me. The same thing. My parents, looking at that resilience that they had to have, at least immigrating right into different countries and not knowing, and especially those no's that they have probably gotten. And I also think the impact starts early on for us, right? Mm-hmm. We mimic a lot of things that we see. We mimic and learn from a very young age what possibilities are available to us, opportunities are available to us. Mm-hmm. I always had the opportunity to ask the why as well. It was never in my household where just because this is how it is. It's just, let's figure out the answer if I don't know. And so I agree. Parents have such an amazing impact on us from a very young age. in shaping our future and our mindset. So kudos to your mom for raising the bar. I think that's it shows in your career path and your experiences as well.
Thank you.
Absolutely. You know, one thing, and maybe this is something that has changed, but you know, I always ask this question, and for everybody, it holds truth differently. Is there something that you truly believe, but the majority of people are against that thought or belief or mantra or anything that you maybe live by, work by, walk by? How would you say that there is something that you follow, that you believe that majority of people may not agree with?
I don't know if this is exactly what you're going for, but the first thing that comes to mind is just climate change. And, you know, I firmly believe that it's real and it's due to humans and it needs to be addressed now. Well, yesterday. In fact, climate change is why my path turned about a decade ago from aerospace to energy and environment. You know, I was talking about my PhD. Well, my first year out of my PhD, I took this 1-year fellowship in the US Senate. And I thought I was going to be helping them with aerospace topics, but they didn't want an aerospace fellow. There were other options out there. So I decided to learn more about energy and environment. And that's what I did for the year. And I got this 100,000-foot view glimpse at what was going on in energy and environment at the US Senate level, right? The government level. And from that, what I really took away was that climate change is really the moonshot of our generation. Thankfully, I think a majority of people do believe in this now, but it's been a tough 10 years to be in the climate space, I can tell you. So maybe that's one. Another one might be, you know, I don't know the stats on this one, but something that really terrifies me is the human mentality of thinking in the short term and for personal benefit, you know, thinking about the next quarterly profit. Because the way I see it, we've got limited resources on this tiny blue planet, and we're basically consuming it, the forest, the water, the air, the resources at a really scary rate. In fact, when I was working on the energy water nexus topic at Department of Energy and then the White House, I would often be talking about how half of the world's aquifers are being depleted at an unsustainable rate. And, you know, we have 200,000 acres of rainforest being burned every day, and our energy mix relies on fossil fuels, which is the main cause of global warming. And, you know, we get this increase in hurricane intensity, wildfires, droughts that are only going to get worse and cause major conflict across the world. Yeah. And this is all fixable, but the mentality of humans is profit now, not, you know, thinking about the future. There's actually a Native American philosophy that I learned about. I think it originated with the Iroquois, all about how decisions we make today should take into consideration the next 7 generations as well. So I think I might be in the minority on this one, especially in a capitalist society. But
I was going to say that. I mean, here in the US, particularly, at least when you think about it, it's all about profits, right? How can we move forward? We are not thinking about the next generation and issues that may arise, whatever issues in all aspects, but particularly in the climate, we see the impact of climate change. Absolutely. Even in our own cities here or anywhere else in the world, we see it in the weather. We see it in how things are changing, droughts and no water, or, you know, vice versa. So I'm very, I would say, worried for the challenges our next generations are going to have. I mean, there's always Jeff Bezos and Richard Branson to take us to Mars, but we should consider first saving our own planet before we consider going to another planet and start this over, right?
Yeah.
One curiosity that everyone has is, what's your morning routine? I mean, it might be different now since we're in the pandemic, but what does it look like really? And you can explain either or, pre and post and during.
Yeah. Well, some parts of my morning routine haven't changed. So I start every morning with my Persian tea, of course, as any good Persian girl does. But I think something that has helped me, that I've started getting into this routine over the last 10 years, is I spend a few minutes in the morning, even before I've checked my email for the day, just thinking about the 2 or 3 things I definitely want to get done that day. And that's really helped me stay focused and make sure I don't get off on tangents, which is so easy to do in this day and age with all of the communications that we all get. But like a day in my life, I mentioned I'm the executive director of this center. Well, it's the first year of the center. It's a brand new science and technology research center, which means I'm basically responsible for determining our niche and the impacts we want to have and how we want to make that impact, and building relationships and creating the structure and really laying the bricks for the future, which is incredibly exciting and something I've done before and I love to do. But in reality, tactically, what that means day to day is that, I'm listening a lot. I did a whole listening tour at my job, lots of meetings, lots of lists, lots of spreadsheets and PowerPoint presentations to communicate about the new center. But really, the best part of my job is getting to work with these brilliant world-class researchers that are all the top of their field. I'm learning a lot of the science, and it's just a great feeling to know I'm helping them as well. So lots of meetings, lots of listening, lots of strategizing, and that's what I do all day.
Wow. And a busy day as well for those who are thriving to, follow those footsteps. Yes, our morning routines are really important. As you mentioned, I also have my Persian tea in the morning. It's a must. And then, of course, that mindset that you mentioned is really important, because just diving into your phone and in your computer, you get lost about the priorities and the focus that we have for what we want to achieve, either for that day or for that month or for that week. So when we talk about, setting our knowledge forward, and you mentioned in regards to learning and also where you get your information, what were some of the books that have had a great impact on your life, or currently you're reading, whichever is more important for you to mention?
I love that question. I am a huge book nerd. I've been reading books so long, and books that I probably shouldn't have been reading so young, etc. So I just, I love the question, because I think books are a way for folks to really explore new worlds or new adventures or open minds to just new realities and let people be creative. So when I think back at books that were important to me, very early on, like lower school, there was this book I read called Wonderful Flight to the Mushroom Planet, which is a kid's book. But I think that might have been one of the first, space books that I remember reading. And that really got me excited about other planets and aerospace, et cetera. And then later, high school level, I think I was reading Ender's Game, which is like a sci-fi book. So I just started getting addicted to the sci-fi genre. My parents showed me Star Wars, and I was a big Star Wars nerd after that. And then I don't know if of course, everyone I think has seen Jurassic Park, but for those of you who are interested, try reading it. I just loved there was a lot more science in the book. And it was just fun to see how they taught people about fractals by using images, et cetera.
Yeah, I love that. I've seen all the movies, and I'm actually rewatching them again.
Oh, good. Yes.
I love it. Especially, they haven't had any new ones, but they had the last 2 ones with Chris something who's in it. And they're rebuilding those 2 parks. And the last one, I think it's all about, how they're wanting to bring them back and sell them and all of that. So it's very interesting. You learn so much about the old habitat of these animals, and also,
and you learn about the genetics too.
Yeah.
But I would say, beyond the sci-fi stuff, which obviously has really shaped me a lot, there's other certain books that I think back on that I read when I was very young, like Little Princess or Anne of Green Gables, that really showed what it could be to be a strong kid as a girl, right? And that it's okay to speak out, and that it's okay to be brave, or it's okay to show emotions, that kind of thing. And then I guess the last one I'll mention is, on the leadership level, everyone, hears from their boss or the trainings they go through about books they should read. Well, there was actually one that I loved a lot. It's called Turn the Ship Around. And it's all about how to be a good manager. And it's written through the lens of a man who was actually running a submarine. And it's a whole new way of thinking about leadership. And I think people who are managers and leaders should really consider it.
Absolutely. And I think that's really important. Beyond having technical skills or knowledge, just having leadership skills is important to be any type of group setting. You don't have to be a leader per title to also have leadership skills. If you want to be recognized as a leader, you need to have those knowledge and skill sets as well. So definitely important. Great. I know we have been having a long conversation. I have a few more questions for you. One fun one. What would you do if you knew at this moment you can achieve anything you want and there is no failure? What would that be?
That's a good question. I guess my first gut would be I would go jump off a roof and fly, because I've always wanted to fly. But thinking about it more through like science and technology perspective and like saving the world, which I know we all wake up to do, I think I would try to perfect nuclear fusion, like, the same process the sun uses for basically infinite clean and safe energy. So we wouldn't have to worry about energy anymore. That might be one.
Absolutely. And that would change a lot of businesses as well, I think, if we achieve that. Solar is one way to go right now, but I think we certainly need to come up with much more innovative ways to solve that problem, especially, I would say, in the third world countries as well.
Yeah.
And one of the last questions I have for you is, what do you want to leave on this earth?
Ooh, that's a deep one.
I know.
Let's see. I think the basic concept would be I want to leave the earth better than I found it. So I want to have a positive impact, on people, on institutions that serve people, our democracy, education, climate, innovation. I think one of the best things I've gotten to work on is I'm on the board of an organization called QSide, the Institute for the Quantitative Study of Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity. And, I just feel like in this increasingly polarized world, overflowing with opinions and social media platforms and bias in the news, it couldn't be more important right now to illuminate the true facts in order to inform action that will make the right impact on equity, diversity, and inclusion. And QSide's capabilities and expertise in revealing and analyzing big data based on math and statistical analysis and computing, and they couple that with behavioral sciences to really serve as a foundation for systemic change. So, I'm just really proud of what QSide does, and that's kind of an example of the type of legacy I would want to leave behind.
That was so beautiful. I definitely think that's something that's important, especially as we progress in this world. Having inclusivity, diversity, and also equity is so important. I know it's on every company's mind right now more than ever, anywhere in the world, at least that I'm aware of, that this is their goal, whether it's in the workplace or in their cities. We want to achieve that at some point. And as I'm sure you know, women are way behind in this game. We're still struggling to get there. So I'm hoping that more and more organizations and initiatives are focused on achieving this goal for the better of all of us. Well, this has been a very interesting conversation, Dr. Bakhtian. How can people get in touch with you?
Oh, absolutely. They can find me on LinkedIn. That's the easiest way. I'm on LinkedIn and I love hearing from people and answering questions. So please find me there.
Absolutely. And any other thoughts you would like to leave us and for the audience?
I just want to thank you, Sepida. What you're doing with Persian Women in Tech is incredible. This is an amazing organization, and I'm just so thrilled to be a part of it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it, and we can't wait to hear from our audience who are listening to get their feedback and connect with you. As Dr. Bakhtian mentioned, you can connect with her on LinkedIn. If you're interested in learning more about our program, which is P with Shiros, or if you would like to listen to our podcast, please follow us on SoundCloud or YouTube, where our episodes are listed. If you're interested to suggest someone to have as our guest, you can email us at podcast@persianwomenintech.com. I want to thank Dr. Bakhtian for her time today, an incredible insight and inspiring the next generation of Iranian women in tech. Thank you so much for your time and really appreciate it. And we look forward to this conversation in the future as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us this week on P with Shiroz. Make sure to visit our website, PersianWomenInTech.com, where you can subscribe to our podcast on YouTube and SoundCloud so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a rating on our podcast platforms and share the podcast link with friends and help us elevate Iranian women in tech and inspire our community.